Barbary Coast pirates, North Africa, they were controlling or trying to control the Mediterranean. They stopped American and European, Western European ships. They would seize them and then hold the crew for ransom. They usually just out and out stole the goods in the ship, but would hold the crew for ransom. Eventually, Jefferson sends the Navy in with some ships, but it's not really until 1850 that we totally deal with the problem, and the British and American Navy go in together and bomb the holy heck out of Tripoli and a couple of other places and get rid of the Barbary Coast pirates once and for all. Okay, court cases. Marbury versus Madison. The most important court case to remember. And if nothing else, think of my initials. Judicial review, think JR, judicial review, okay? Judicial review means that the court has the right to declare a law constitutional or not, okay? Marbury versus Madison, judicial review. So the question was one year, which of the following was a similarity between Marbury versus Madison and Fletcher versus Peck? And they gave like pro-contract, judicial review, states' rights supreme, you have a right to an attorney, I don't know, they had 5 things. Whenever you see Marbury versus Madison, just look for judicial review. That's always the answer, okay? McCulloch versus Maryland is a case that said that the central government was supreme to states. The state of Maryland tried to tax the National Bank, and the courts ruled that they could not do that, that the bank as a federal institution did not have to pay state taxes. This was all done under the John Marshall's court. He's the 2nd Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He was appointed by Mr. Adams. Okay, Jefferson hated his guts. The Marshall Court's tendency is nationalistic, meaning central government is stronger than state governments. Nationalistic meaning pro-American. Their decisions are pro-contract. That's the Dartmouth College versus Woodward case. They're pro-loose interpretation. They're pro-judicial review. Okay? So in all, they support heavily Federalist policies. And John Marshall was a Federalist, which is interesting on 2 realms. First of all, he was Virginian, and second of all, he was a distant cousin of Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson disliked him immensely. Burr, why was he acquitted of treason? Oh, this is another example of Jefferson with judicial, or with loose interpretation. Remember that Burr supposedly was writing letters to the governor of Louisiana, hoping to foment rebellion, and they were going to start their own southeastern nation, so to speak. And he was floating down the Ohio River Valley to the Mississippi River, supposedly to go and start the revolution. And Jefferson had him arrested and brought back to Washington to stand trial for treason. Why was he acquitted? Because in the Constitution it says you have to have 2 eyewitnesses to treason. There were not 2 eyewitnesses to any treason. The only witness of treason was the governor of Wilkinson, who said that Jefferson had been writing the letters, but he hadn't even saved the letters, so, okay. So Burr gets off. Jefferson is furious. National economy and U.S. exports of early 1800s kind of go together. There's kind of the awareness that parts of the country are becoming more interdependent by 1800. We have growing industry. By 1800, a major crop in the South is becoming cotton. Now we've got cotton. And some of that cotton is going to England, but some of it's also going to Massachusetts, where there are textile mills. Okay? So that you're having greater interdependence of economy. U.S. exports are very similar. From New England, you get some textiles now, but you still have ships. You have tobacco from the South. You have rice from the South. The Embargo Act, 1807. Jefferson's president. The French and the British are still off and on fighting. They're still stopping our ships and seizing cargoes because they don't want the other side to get an advantage in trade. The British are still impressing our sailors. Jefferson gets tired of people complaining that the government's not doing anything, so his solution is to get Congress to pass a bill which says we're not trading with any foreign country. If you're a rice farmer in South Carolina and you want to sell your rice, you're welcome to sell it in Boston, New York, Philadelphia, wherever. You cannot sell it in Bermuda, you cannot sell it in England. Okay, we're not trading with any foreign countries. No foreign ships can bring stuff in, and no American ships can go out. Okay? This lasts for 2 years. Jefferson, unpopular because he wanted to remain neutral in the war instead of taking one side or the other. And what did the Embargo Act do to the U.S. economy? It actually, in the long run, strengthens it because it makes us more self-sufficient, sets up more American industry. Okay? In the beginning, New England suffers, and they are very upset. But by the time the War of 1812 is over, New England is pretty industrialized compared to what it had been before the Embargo Act. Remember, the Embargo Act is replaced by the Non-Intercourse Act, which says we'll trade with nations that aren't at war. And then a year after that, it's replaced by Makin's Bill No. 2, which says we'll trade with nations that just say they'll leave us be neutral. So we'll trade with anybody as long as they let us be neutral. Causes of War of 1812, impressment, interference with shipping or trade, whatever, lack of freedom of the seas, whatever term you want to use. The British are still in the Ohio River Valley. The Indians are being incited out in the Ohio River Valley by the British. Makes us mad. Tecumseh, a Native American in the Ohio River Valley who wants to reestablish Indian dominance over that land, get rid of the white people. He's trying to put together this giant Indian confederation. His brother Prophet has a dream that the Indians will prevail and they're impervious to bullets. Bullets won't touch them. The first battle of the War of 1812 is the Battle of Tippecanoe. William Henry Harrison leads the American troops against the Indians. Tecumseh is not there at this battle, but his brother Prophet is, and what happens? He gets killed by a bullet. Oops. Tecumseh ends up serving in the British Army in this war and then moving to Britain afterwards, or maybe he dies, I don't remember, but anyway. Who were the War Hawks? They were the pro-war people, people like Henry Clay, John C. Calhoun. They tended to be young congressmen from the South and the West. Okay? Impressment, we've already talked about this numerous times, but once again, when the British were forcing Americans into their Navy, which was a bad thing because they had a high death rate in the British Navy. These were people who considered themselves Americans, not British. It ends up causing things like the Chesapeake Affair, where the USS Chesapeake was right off the coast of the United States. The British ordered them to stop. They said, because we're in the United States, The British fired on the ship, then boarded it, and took off 4 Americans that they said were British citizens. This leads to the Embargo Act. Jefferson has had it. So it's one of those things that helps also cause the War of 1812. Madison's declaration of war in 1812 called for everything but debt payments to be made. It called for the British to stop impressment. It called for the British to stop interfering with the trade. It called for the British to leave the Ohio River Valley. It did not call for the Americans to pay back the Loyalists.